Gruesome Magazine.
Hello, once again, I'm Doc Rotten, and this is Gruesome Magazine, where we review the very latest in streaming and video on-demand horror movies each week. My co-host, Jeff Mohr, Crystal Cleveland, Dave Dreher, Christopher G. Mohr, and myself will take a look at various spooky, scary, and gory genre offerings. Tonight, we review They Live in the Gray, streaming on SHUDDER beginning February 17th, 2022. Let me introduce the crew, starting off with the one and only Crystal Cleveland, the Living Dead Girl. How are you doing? I'm
great. I'm good.
Yeah.
All right.
Is great spelled with G-R-E-Y?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
All right. Well, let's welcome award-winning filmmaker Christopher G. Mohr. How you doing, sir?
I'm a ghost.
No.
I'm an angry ghost.
Okay. What about I'm great? Like that would have been funny, right? Great. Like,
nah, I steal your thunder.
Snapper 2, Slim Jim. I don't know what you're doing, but let's go with it.
Okay, now you just went off. Just because it's a food item. It has nothing to do with the film, by the way.
First thing, nothing, neither one. But let's get into this. What we're going to do is we're going to give our first impression of the film. That will be spoiler-free, and then we'll dive into a discussion when we do that. We will get into spoilers, and then we'll wrap things up with our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. And we hope you enjoyed not only this review, but many others that we have on the site. And if you want to help us out, it's easy and free to do. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, share with a friend. We'll be happy. Well, thank you so much. And, of course, we want to hear your comments as well. It's on SHUDDER. You should watch it and let us know what you think. Because we know you have SHUDDER. All right. They Live in the Gray. Available on SHUDDER beginning February 17th, 2022. Written and directed by the Vang brothers, Abel and Burlee. We like them. The cast includes Michelle Krusiec, Ken Kirby, Madelyn Grace, Audrey Mohr, Ellen Wroe, Mercedes Manning, and Bernard Bullen. The synopsis is Claire, while investigating a child abuse case, discovered that the family is being tormented by a supernatural entity. That old chestnut. All right, let's find out what we thought of this. Crystal, you're up first. What was your first impression of They Live in the Gray?
Okay, so we talked a little bit about this before we started the show, so this should be an interesting one. Okay, so I do think, yes, the cinematography is really lovely. I think the score is great. Sound editing, didn't have any sort of issues there. This is basically a ghost film. I don't think that's giving too much away. It's kind of obvious. And she's a child caseworker, and she's had some losses of her own, and she is a clairvoyant, I suppose is what you'd call her, empath, a clairvoyant type person. All that's great. My biggest issue with this film, however, is that it's 2 hours long, and there is so much that I watched that could be cut from this film that would make it so much better. Because at points it just got boring. When they're like filming the sky as someone's driving, I just zone out. I'm like, what? Okay. I have better things to do with my time than that, honestly. So for me, had the story been cut down at least 15 minutes, and I swear I could go through and just tell you that's unnecessary. That's unnecessary. There's so many excessive points in here where they try to drive a plot point home, and they just do it over and over and over. And I'm like, yeah, we get it. We get it. That's enough. So I will say, though, at the end, it ramped up and it got really exciting. I really enjoyed the end. I was like, oh, why couldn't the whole movie be, more like this? Because it's not scary. It's not scary, or at least it wasn't scary for me at all. And I watched it alone in the dark. But also, I'm not a really good judge of that. But I did love the twist at the end, and I loved the concept of it. Yeah, and I liked that she came to terms or grips with her, gift, I guess, as it were. The acting is great too. No problems with the acting. Everything was great there too. So
You're conflicted, it seems.
No, well, the problem is I enjoyed it, but when it had these moments where I'm literally like, why did they keep this in here? Because I'm already like, this movie is running so long. And I'm like, why did they keep this in here? We didn't need 50 scenes with her and her son. I'm sorry, but it just doesn't, we get it. Yeah.
We get it.
Mm-hmm.
We get it. Yeah.
So I'm a little, I feel like it was a poor choice to do that. And if you're going to have a movie that's 2 hours long, you better make it good. You better make it good. Or otherwise, people are going to feel like me. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, let's find out what Christopher thought. Christopher, what was your first impression of They Live in the Gray?
I 500% fully disagree.
500%.
This is the favorite film I've seen so far this year, which is saying a lot because we're just in February.
That's true. And
I will say, it takes a little bit to get going in the very beginning. I'll give it that much. But I wouldn't cut anything in this film. I love all 2 hours of it. It is pure film school. And I think maybe it has something to do with maybe you didn't connect with the characters properly. We watched this other film that was very slow and prodding. This is the way you do it because it's all about the characters. It's all about being saturated in what's happening, and there are, a lot of the scenes are methodical in how they're framed and how they frame the characters and how they frame the actors, how they show that there's issues between two characters. They use the scenery to reflect that. There's slow push-ins when there's scenes with certain characters that you don't barely notice, but when you pay attention, you realize, oh, we're either being drawn out of the situation or being drawn into it. And I jumped 5 times during this film.
Oh, nice.
This film actually kind of scared me a few times, which I kept getting mad. I was like, stop. I yelled that to my TV. I was like, stop, because it's very effective to where they have these long moments that I think maybe Crystal would have cut him out, but I wouldn't cut him out because it builds the tension. It builds the atmosphere. It makes you sort of like, oh crap, what's about to happen type moments. And also because it's about the longing, it's about loss, it's about grief, it's about people not communicating. So it's one of those films that, it has a supernatural aspect of it, but it also has the aspect of how people in the real world, if they communicated things better, situations would be better, in the same way that there's a miscommunication between, supernatural beings not knowing that they're dead or having issues with certain things. And I thought the ending was brilliant. Mm-hmm. It's one of those few times where I didn't really see where it was going by the ending. And I love that because sometimes you can guess those things a mile away. And I thought the actors were amazing. The Vang brothers. I actually started researching some of their stuff. I want to see more of this stuff because these are two talented dudes that made me like. It actually made me question my abilities as a filmmaker because there's little things they do with their camera work that is reflective of the characters in the scenes. Whether it's like a push-in on two people talking, but you see their reflection in the mirror, whether it's how they separate people with the character being in one shot and the family being in the other. So there's a lot of different things I think work when it comes to characters and reflecting that in the camera work and how you shoot certain things or how you edit certain things. And I think they do a better job with flashbacks than other films do. Yeah, and I think it can be kind of slow, because because you're feeling the sort of somberness of this character who runs away from things and doesn't really want to go toe to toe with things, as opposed to finally womaning up and going after these issues that she's had problems with. So I thought the film was really great, and I can understand people's issues with it because it is one of those slow films. I had an issue with this other film we reviewed that I thought was a million times slower than this, and I think everything is more intentional in this than it was in the other film, to where
Agreed.
I was sucked in to where I had covers and I was watching because I was like, oh God, what's going to happen? And there was one moment where I actually cried because there was
yeah,
this
it's
communicative
sad.
moment, or there's also a moment between her finally come to dealing with the loss of someone. So I don't know. I know it's kind of opposite with Crystal, but again, that's all this subjective nature of art. But as a filmmaker, I fully appreciate this, and I mean, this is my jam and how filmmakers tell a story using characters, using great actors, but also informing it through their camera work.
I don't think it's that opposite. Real quick, I don't think it's that opposite from me. I just think that I didn't watch it as much from the filmmaking perspective as I did from the story. I think
maybe it's all perspective.
Yeah,
and sometimes we may not connect with characters, and that may change
Doc.
how we see things. But anyway, let's hear what Doc has to say.
Sorry.
Let's see if he's
That's all right.
side or if he hates my guts.
Well, okay. So I saw. I have mixed feelings about this film.
Oh my God! Yeah. Okay.
There are moments of it that I thought were actually really brilliant, and there were moments that I thought were beyond creepy. And there were a couple jump scares that got me, but I almost kind of groaned at a couple of them. Because it's the Conjuring school of jump scare to the right or left. But at the same time, I enjoyed the supernatural aspects of this. Some of the flashbacks, though, rubbed me the wrong way, and that's where I got lost. And it took at one point I was wondering, am I watching three different people, or is this just the one person three different times? I was really having a struggling relating this as the same character. So I had a little bit of a time with that. But when it focused on her dealing with the supernatural, it really kicked in for me, and I really, really enjoyed that. To me, it's kind of a cross between The Sixth Sense and The Eye from 2002, the Pang Brothers version.
I see that.
It's and there's similarities. It's kind of obvious, but it has that feel to it. And that's always a fascinating thing where, a character has, this visions that others around them don't see. And in this case, she doesn't really share because she's kind of freaked out by them. But there's like one scene with the son when, the curtains are blowing and the little stuffed doll shakes a little bit. And it's like, oh crap, what's going on? And, so there were times when it really works. So I'm kind of torn. I see what both of you are saying, and I agree with both of you. I unfortunately, Christopher, I think I would trim this down a little bit.
Gotcha.
But at the same time, when it's working, especially toward the end, when she is getting into, when it's in the third act and she's kind of resolving a number of conflicts that this film establishes throughout, it really, really grabbed my attention. So I kind of like it, but I don't think I quite have the passion for it you do, Christopher. But I think I like it more than Crystal does.
Well, and I'll give you this much. I can understand that. There's probably a few things, maybe a few scenes, that you could probably trim down. I mean, I will say there's a couple of flashbacks that there's like a flashback where she's pregnant or whatever. That felt kind of long.
It was weird. It was out of it.
And there's a few times that are like that. They're kind of weird, but then it's like other flashbacks worked better. Although even in the scene with the pregnant woman, the way that they have a delineation of the room using the curtains, the way things like that, I just thought as a filmmaker, visually, it looked so amazing that
that's probably why it's so long, because they looked at it and it's like that. I can get, as a filmmaker, you look at your stuff and you're like, it's all so good. And so you don't want to take anything out,
Yeah, well, and I can understand that. And but then it's like, there's the scene where which I guess I could see someone cutting out is the scene where the little boy is like doing his homework on the floor, and it's shot as one long shot. But it's one of those things to where, like, if you pay attention to the room and the things are happening, I was like, did I see that curtain move?
Yeah, yeah, I like that shot actually.
And then like the teddy bear moved, and I was like, that is brilliant. To where it's like there's all this shit that's happening in the room, and it's all in one shot. And to me, I got chills. I was like, oh, this is so cool, a cool idea. And that's how you do a long shot without that makes it more interesting. To where it's a very mundane situation where it's like, hey, you want to get food, blah blah blah. But it's all about like
we're gonna get tacos. That's why you love it.
The supernatural stuff that's happening in the room.
Yep.
Things like that I think kind of worked. But
well, yeah, I want to jump on that. I want to jump on that, Christopher, real quick before we move on, because that scene and another scene have something in common with it that I'm not entirely sure it worked 100% for me. I mean, what you're describing, I absolutely love, but the camera was so far back. It took me a while to get absorbed into that scene. And similarly, there's a scene where she's interviewing the family and they're kind of at the dinner table and she's not even in the same room. And I mean, you mentioned that earlier, and that scene pulled me out of the film.
Well, and I will say it kind of pulled me out in the very beginning, but then I was like, I can understand what they're doing with it. But yeah, because I was like, why would she sit on the other side of the room?
I know, it was just weird.
That was very weird. But then it's like, but then when she got but then I felt like it was more, I felt like they were using the filmmaking to sort of show that there's a separation where she feels very like disconnected from people. And yeah, I mean, that probably could have been changed. But then when she kind of joins it, it gets more interesting when she joins the room. But then there's other things I think work really well and were kind of creepy and stuff. Because I mean, especially when there's moments where she doesn't know what people are real and what people aren't. Like there's a cop scene that was like kind of really creepy.
Oh, that was good. That was good. I like that. That very much reminded me of the elevator scene.
I wish we could have had more backstory on that, though. Like, what? I would love to know where she came from.
I don't think. To me, I just feel like it's just like she sees
dead people. I get it. Yeah, I know, and that's why
random dead people. I mean, because what about there's a weird guy that shows up at her table in her house and.
Oh yeah, and outside of her house.
But I'll say that table scene scared the shit out of me. Just how they had this quick movement camera thing, which felt very Evil Dead-ish. I thought was kind of cool, and how the scare tactics for me was like how a ghost would be here or whatever, and then the camera moved, and all of a sudden it was next to her, and I was like, oh shit, and that stuff would scare me. And I kind of like that, to where it's like these ghosts wouldn't be like. They can almost teleport, to different parts and within a scene, and I kind of like that freaky aspect of it, because then you can't. It's hard to escape something if it can always be, or like running.
Yeah, that reminded me of The Conjuring. This is my house.
I feel like they were definitely influenced by James Wan. There's definitely some James Wan film school going on, but I feel like I think that. They have that down pat, because there was some really. I mean, there's even creepy scene. There's even a scene that's very like, not Insidious, is it? It's is it Insidious, where the person's behind them or whatever?
Yeah.
There's a scene that's sort of like that. That was like had me kind of creeped out. So I don't know. There's parts that actually kind of creeped me out, and I kept getting mad. I was like, stop it! Stop scaring me. I shouldn't be scared this much, and maybe I was just in the right mood for it or whatever. But I don't know. I
like the aspect of the closet, and and sharing that with the girl that I'm afraid I even sleep in my. But the way they stitch together
her closet is kind of crazy looking.
It's creepier it's creepier than the house. I don't know why you're going.
Yeah, that's the creepiest room in her house.
But the way they cut it with some of the flashbacks with her husband. I was like, okay, are you sleeping in the bed or the closet? What's going on here? Because I was having trouble sometimes I was trying to figure out, it's like, is her husband dead and this is a ghost? What's going on here? And I was really troubled by that.
I just thought it was her safe room, and I didn't really question.
It wasn't very safe for her.
Well, it evidently not. Well, no, none of it was safe. I mean, I knew when she went to the hospital, I was like, oh shit, that's gonna be a perfect place for dead people. I mean, there's a really creepy thing involving a pregnant woman and a baby that was like, just the sound effects of it was like, oh crap. Or the backside of some guy's ass. You know,
oh yeah.
ghost ass.
Yeah. Well, I really liked when she realized that she can communicate, right? I liked how that grew in the story. It wasn't just, because the family suggested it, right? And it took a while for that to actually grow into actually being a trait. And I liked that they took the time to do that.
That's what I'm saying. I like that. I see that part. I liked that she came to terms with her gift and ability. Like I said in the beginning, that I didn't have any problem with. It's just, I think a lot of it was a lot of those flashbacks. It's just, it's more than we needed.
I mean, I can understand that. I mean, I could see that. I mean, I will say, like I said, the film's not perfect. The storytelling aspect of it, especially the very beginning, I was a little bit worried when I started watching it. And I was like, I'm not sure about this. But then I just kind of got sucked in once I sort of visually saw how they were telling the story and the creepiness of certain scenes, and also just the main actors, and also it's nice to see a film that's got diverse group of actors and cast in it, with the two leads being Asian. So I just thought that was really, and I thought they both did a great job. Because I mean, as much as some people hate like long scenes, but there's even a cool scene, involved with, we're in there in the kitchen and he confronts her in the kitchen. It's just done as one long shot. And you could see the power between the two people. They're like, he's like, just tell me, I mean, it's like things like that. It's like, it's kind of heartbreaking to watch, because you can sort of see that, she's so like withdrawn, when the communication isn't there and they want the communication to be there, it's always very hard to watch in a story.
All right, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. Let's give it our final thoughts, our score 1 to 5, and our favorite scene. Crystal, you are up first.
Okay, so I didn't like it as much as Shaw, but
no,
I didn't dislike it either. I honestly think if some of the editing had been tightened up, that I'd really enjoy it, because it just felt really long to me, and I was like, oh, why am I watching? I know it's pretty, but I don't want to watch it in a 2-hour movie. I don't need to see pretty shots in that. I just want the story. Give me the meaty treats. So
meaty treats.
Meaty treats. I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Oh wow! Okay, that's better than I was expecting.
Really? Well, I guess I'm not praising what I do like about it enough, but the other parts just irritate. I got irritated by it. That's why I'm so focused on that part, because I was like, I just remember this one scene in particular where she drives out into like the middle of the desert or with the power, and she sees her son. There's literally no reason to have that whole scene in the movie, and I was like, I'm so mad at you filmmakers right now. I like, yeah, I hated it. Hated it. Like that's
because you're cold-hearted.
No.
Yeah, I was just like, no, we had plenty of moments with them. We didn't. I think she needed to just let her son rest anyway, And I'm like, sometimes I don't know. Anyway, doesn't matter. Yeah. My favorite scene. Oh, totally. And so I think the turning point for her, you talk about when she came to terms with her, clairvoyance or whatever, that for me, my favorite scene and the turning point was obviously the woman in the hospital.
Yes. Oh my God.
Yeah. I love the scene when the woman is alive and what she says. It's not that we, deal with this. It's that we don't let someone else help us through it. Oh, I was like, and I love the way it was worded. I wish I'd written it down or whatever, because I think it was so poignant and so true. And then she had a moment with this woman. And then when the woman had passed, she wasn't afraid of her. And I think that's really, I think at that moment is when she realized, oh, these were people. these were living people. They're not as scary and as spooky as I've been making them out to be.
Right.
So, yeah.
It's like, what day is this? What day is this? I love when they do that. All right, Christopher, you're up next. Your final thoughts, your score, and your favorite scene.
Well, I can understand how, some parts of it people kind of have issues with. I mean, I love the scene between her and her son out in the thing. I think that scene had to happen because of the story, because she learns that she has to sort of let these ghosts know that they could leave and that kind of thing. And I think the way it's shot is kind of cool, to where you don't ever see his face. You just see the side. I mean, and I think that the main thing that I love about this film is the filmmaking. I mean, the acting as well, but the way the scenes are framed, like that, you can sort of see the issues between the two couple in this one flashback scene where she's lying in the bed and the bedposts shows that there's a split between the two of those. I mean, things like that, where it's all about visually how you represent the scene, or how she's trapped throughout a good part of the movie. She's trapped within her environment, whether it's being, like there's a scene where it's above the stairs and she's trapped within the recesses of that, or even when she's trapped in the window of her cubicle. Which Steven Spielberg did back in like movies like Duel, where the guy's trapped within the window of the washer machine. I mean, things like that. I think the way they use the camera work, where they frame scenes, the use of the framing, to where they just sometimes let the scenes live within it for, where I think other filmmakers would just be cut. We need to cut, as opposed to just letting the scene breathe, take it in. And I think that's what allows some of the creepiness to happen in certain scenes. And, I think the way it ends is like, it kind of shocked me, because I didn't really see it going where it went. And that felt kind of nice, to have a film that kind of like thinks it's going one way and it goes a different way. And that's amazing. And there's also the use of sound design and stuff really work well, whether it's hearing the crying of a baby, or hearing the sounds of people walking into the house. And like, I mean, we all live in our house and we hear that creepy sound, like, what the hell was that?
I know. It's like, wait, we're all down here. What's that upstairs?
And I live by myself, and something will fall downstairs. Like, oh fuck, somebody's breaking in, or is that a ghost? So we always have those moments, and I think the atmosphere, but it also has the power. It has the dramatic aspect of it. I think the actress is amazing in this, because she goes through so many different levels of fear and, emotional heartbreak and anger. I mean, there's a part where she just screams in her car, which feels very visceral. I don't know. I was kind of surprised, because I think the very beginning of it, I was a little bit worried. I'm not sure about this, but then this film sucked me in, and I felt for the characters. And the filmmaking, I think, was just, I don't know. I was like, it was like eating the most delicious dessert and enjoying every bite of it. Nice. To where you just clean the plate. There's nothing left on the plate, because you just like, oh, wow. And it just makes me want to see what the Vang brothers do next. Because I don't know. Maybe I was in a good mood. And the films creeped me out, scared me a few times. So rating wise, I'll give it a 4.25. I mean, I think it's not a perfect film. I think I can understand how some of the flashbacks kind of bog it down for some people. I think some of them work, some of them don't work as well. But definitely, when it starts firing on all cylinders, and there's issues when she has these supernatural things show up, it's very creepy, or even the ghosts that happen to the family in one scene is very, oh shit, what's happening here? As for favorite scene, man, there's so many to pick from. I'm going to cheat, and I'm going to say a dramatic scene and a scary scene. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah, sure.
Dramatic scene, I'll say there's a phone call she makes to her husband. I cried. It made me cry. Because it's a moment where she finally communicates with him. And then he ends up breaking down too. I think I'm getting emotional just talking about it. I just found that to be very believable. And you have this character throughout. She doesn't want to let anybody in. She doesn't want to say anything about what's going on with her. And she finally like, okay, you know, I'm gonna finally communicate with this person that I love. And I just found that to be very heartfelt and believable and a beautiful scene in a film that, you know, I guess most people would more focus on the horror. As for scary stuff, I will say, I don't know. I love the scene where the guy shows up at the table and they do this really cool trick where the camera goes whoop, 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 like this. And he shows up somewhere else. And I was like, oh, God. I was like, shit. It scared me. So I kind of like the visual camera work in that scene. But, I mean, there's so many different jump scares that made me, like, as a filmmaker, like, I want to do better. I want to do jump scares that make other people shit their pants.
Nice.
Or accidentally fart because, like, oh, shit. So I kudos to these. I'm really blown away by the talents of these brothers. I mean, you know, that's just amazing.
Yeah, it's a good job. Good job. I agree. The direction on this is exquisite at times. They do a great job. There's some of the storytelling and editing together that, you know, is where I kind of stumble. But regardless, this film, when it worked, it really got me. I liked the aspect of it. I liked the character and what she was going through. I mean, basically, she's going through, you know, the stages of grief, right, throughout the entire film. We're watching different stages of it until we finally get to the acceptance, and that's the end of the film and how she deals with that. So, and you really feel that, you know, the anger when she's in the car and, you know, she's depressed, you know, with the, you know, at the bottom of the steps, what she does there, and it's all there. So it really is her dealing. Her story is dealing with the loss of the son and how it broke up, you know, her family. Not only, you know, it just destroyed her, right? And this is her rebuilding herself. And then you have the story of the family that she's dealing with, and then the third part, of course, is all the supernatural part that's tying everything together and driving a good portion of it and making it more difficult for her because she keeps seeing her son. So I really like it, but there are moments that just were oddly, you know, just struck me odd and took me out of it. So, but in the end, I'm giving it 3.75. So go figure what I'm really trying to say there. But so I kind of dug it. And I would recommend it. It's you know, it's streaming on Shudder. I'd recommend seeing it and checking it out because there's plenty in this and to you know, it'll scare many of you, I think. Those who are more hardened, you know, maybe you've watched a few gory films too many. Maybe
I know.
Maybe not so much.
The skill above me.
But I do enjoy, you know, the supernatural films, and this one really hangs on to that really well. So my favorite scene it's kind of hard to choose because you guys have chosen some of the better ones. And there's a lot to choose from. I'm just trying to figure out which one I really want to go with. I kind of want to go. Okay, so I really like the scene that we were talking about with the where the boy's doing his homework and she's on the couch and they talk about food. The build up to it, not as much as when she comes back into the room, right? And things are starting to happen. And it elevated into something really tense and scary for me quickly with that girl. And the whole scream of the ghost and everything, it was like, okay, that's the kind of ghost, even though it's not really doing anything harmful, right? It's just appearing and screaming. That's the crap that scares me because it's just like, what are you doing? I have no idea. And you're screaming at me. And she was, you know, long face creepy. It was, yeah, I like it.
I can't believe no one mentioned. Okay, so I'm calling it the Suspiria, like the arm and the leg and the neck break. I thought it was wonderful. I loved. I was like, yeah. Okay, so the one thing I have to, and I should have mentioned this. One of the things I did really appreciate about the film is they didn't skimp on the supernatural. Like they let you know it's supernatural. Right at the beginning, there was no, you know, like build up to that, it's like, oh, okay, it's obvious.
Yeah.
So,
and I love that the family were like, yeah, you know, first something would move and then we'd hear noises. My favorite shot, though, just visually shot, is down the stairwell of her house, and it was just a great shot that had all this beautiful depth, and the colors were rich. You know, it had the red carpet, right, and the wood, you know, for the stair. It was really, it you know, it gives you that feeling of it was both claustrophobic and really large at the same time, because, you know, there was multiple floors and you could see how the rooms were coming, but yet at the same time it felt very boxed in. So it was really interesting way they did that. So.
Well, and I think that's they really planned out how they shot it. You know, the cinematography in this is just amazing, how they work the framing. And even in the framing, a lot of times, if you pay attention, the camera either sometimes, even in those scenes, sometimes will move out or move in based on what's happening in the scene. So, and they're all framed with it, whether it's, there's like one part where it's like this bowed out mirror where they're framed within that, and the camera slowly like pushes in, and or even underneath the table with the scene with the kid doing anything, they're all trapped within that and the framing underneath that table. So things like that, I think, are just brilliantly thought out and brought to life in this film.
Yeah. So there are things to look out for, as you can hear. So check it out and let us know in the comments what you thought of The Live in the Gray, streaming now on Shudder. Check it out. You have Shudder, so we know you can watch it. All right, Christopher, thank you so much for joining me. This was a lot of fun.
thanks for having us.
No problem. I always like to fight Crystal.
Oh yeah,
That's my favorite thing to do.
All right. Let's say goodnight.
Good night.
What's going on? Good night, everybody.
Gruesome Magazine.